Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is joining us today from all over the world. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of China Gulf Forum 2021. My name is Enshu, and it is with my great pleasure to welcome you to the interview section of the China Gulf Forum 2021. There are 3 interviews ahead for today. Each interview will be followed with a Q&A session in the end. And you can send your questions anonymously to the Q&A box, and our interviewer will go over them one by one during the Q&A session. Each interview will not exceed 40 minutes, giving you all 20 minutes break before the next interview we have for today. The first interview will talk about China's 5G and telecommunication footprint in the Middle East. As the proud co-chair of China Gulf Forum 2021 and a graduating senior at NYU Abu Dhabi, I'm honored to be the interviewer for this session. Please allow me to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Alex Li. Alex is the Managing Director of China Mobile International Middle East since November 2017. Having 17 years of experience in telecommunication business, he was previously with Ooredoo Group and Syntel, working on multiple ventures and projects in many countries in the Gulf region and in Asia. He graduated in 1999 with a Bachelor of Accountancy from Nanyang Technology University in Singapore. He had consistently shown proven expertise in building and managing high-growth portfolios for clients in the Middle Eastern and Asian markets, and had spent the last decade of his time in the Middle Eastern region. Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Hi, Enshu. Thank you very much. It's both my pleasure and my honor to be here. Very glad to be here. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Right.
Awesome. Alex, thank you for joining us. So to kickstart the interview, to kickstart the conversation, we actually have audiences from around the world today. And for the benefit of those in this region who are not yet familiar with China Mobile International, could you briefly introduce what China Mobile International does? And probably highlight the differences between China Mobile International and China Mobile in China.
Right, it's my pleasure, right? So basically, China Mobile International, CMI for short, is a wholly owned subsidiary and international arm of China Mobile Communications Group, CMCC for short, right? It's the largest operator in the world, having 942 million subscribers. So to give it a scale of how big this is like more than 90 times the population of UAE. And CMI, being the international arm, is a one-stop shop trusted partner for operators and enterprises, whereby we offer a huge span of telecommunications and ICT services.
I see. So I think many people will be very curious about this particular question. I'm particularly curious about it as well. So given the telecom industry is sort of a natural monopoly industry, so many telecom businesses, they only operate in their incumbent country. So what are the key objectives of China Mobile International in setting up an overseas operation here in the Middle East?
Right, I mean, Middle East, especially UAE and Saudi, are key important countries along the Belt and Road Initiative, right? That has been and still ongoing, growing number of Chinese companies who have come to this region. That is, we see that they have a need to have a large trusted partner like CMI to help them with their technological requirements. At the same time, with the growing interest in the huge technological advancement coming out from China, we as CMI can also share our interesting products and services, both from CMI and CMCC, and the technology to this part of the region.
So what are some of the major projects that you personally and China Mobile International has embarked on in this part of the world?
Right. Let's say, firstly, CMI had negotiated and implemented roaming arrangements with most of the regional operators, especially in UAE. This enables our Chinese customers who come here to be able to enjoy a very high quality roaming experience and enjoy one of the lowest possible roaming pricing. This had always been one of our key highlight achievements, right? In addition, we had also partnered with local enterprises and Chinese enterprises, for example, to set up one of the smart parking projects in Sharjah, demonstrating our capability in bringing new smart technology into this region. We had also pretty much been regularly providing top-class international connectivity services to the enterprises and regional operators, which is very much our bread and butter, to facilitate them to provide their customers with top quality global internet experience.
So I see that you mentioned some of the technologies that you brought to this part of the world. Could you name some of the technologies and how do these technologies benefit the enterprises?
Connectivity technology is not something invented by China Mobile. It's been ongoing. But because of the scale of China Mobile, we have to buy in bulk to serve our 942 million subscribers, right? And when you buy in bulk, you're able to take some of these inventories, per se, to offer to their operators for their use, right? Because just like anything else, buying in bulk in economies of scale brings down the cost. And then there are also a lot of smart applications, 5G applications that I would say over the last 5 years, China has been very, very advanced in bringing this, right? So we just want to share some of our solutions and some of our solutions products, whereby we see maybe some parts of enterprises and customers in this region would like to be able to have an option.
I see. So I like that you actually brought the concept of 5G, and 5G is definitely the very hot buzzing word today in almost any kind of field. So when it comes to 5G, personally, I'm a 5G user myself since last year, but all I have felt personally was the speed bump, the speed increase. But is 5G just about the speed? So what are some other niche that 5G brings to the customers?
Okay. How do you feel about 5G since you are a 5G user? Besides the speed.
Well, so speed is an important part. I guess that was the main drive for me to actually get on 5G. But I also see there are a lot of imperfections with 5G, right? Like I have to be stationed in a place almost exclusively if I want to rely on that speed. And it actually uses a lot of battery of my phone. So I actually sort of kind of interested, like aside from my own personal usage on relying on the speed, like what other kind of advantage can 5G bring? Not just to me, maybe to the society as well.
So 5G definitely will be of a much faster speed as you experience than 4G, but it is so much more than just speed, right? Frankly, with 4G today, most of us already enjoy a very high level of experience in using mobile internet and applications, right? I mean, if you download a video, whether you download in 5 seconds and 4 seconds, for your user experience, it doesn't make a lot of difference, right? So having 5G will not actually enhance the experience significantly, especially on the speed, but on the same applications we're commonly using today, but it's improved quality of the latency, which you think of like a consistency, along with the speed, will enable a whole new range of applications which are known but not commonly seen yet today, such as driverless cars, cloud gaming experience, right? So 5G is the enabler to make these things common and happen into the world, right? In China Mobile 5G show Beijing, we have a poster that says 4G changed our lives. 5G will change the way we live and we work. Right, so it's not so much on just consumer side, but it's also as it develops, you will start seeing more and more in your everyday life, especially in your workplace.
Are there some examples you could share about the application of 5G, maybe in this part of the world?
In this part of the world, right? I mean, I would say Gulf operators were one of the first operators that started declaring their interest in 5G. And in fact, one of the first operators that deployed their very first 5G tower. But due to COVID, I think the advancement was held back and was relatively slow. But I did notice since July last year, we are seeing the operators within the region picking up a very fast deployment of 5G network, especially here in UAE and in Saudi. I don't think we had actually experienced the scale of things yet, because there are still a lot of exciting developments of 5G applications that we are looking forward to seeing in the next few years, right? But right now, I believe that most of the operators are focused on aggressive, massive deployment on the 5G network right? This will provide the foundation for future 5G development. So what your experience is because the network is not fully built up yet. So you literally have to stay in a place to enjoy 5G, right? But once they have complete building up the entire network and cover it, they will definitely target to 100%, right? Then the whole seamless experience will be different.
I see, I see. Just sharing some of my personal observations. So I've spent, during my holidays, I go back to China for vacation to spend time with family, and I noticed that the idea, the implementation of 5G was actually much earlier in China, for everyday customers. But in terms of signal strength and the actual usage of 5G, it seems like the Gulf is catching up really, really fast. Because right now, I'm currently on Sadia Island, and almost its entire island is covered by 5G. So what is the current level of 5G development in China and in Gulf? Like, how are they compared to each other?
I mean, I would say the Gulf has just started laying the infrastructure, the network infrastructure, right? I mean, if you talk about 5G in China, I think last year, middle of last year, they awarded the license, and operators, including China Mobile, have picked it up very, very, very quickly, right? They have now set up 390,000 mobile towers in China, serving more than I think 172 million users really on 5G. So the scale of things is quite different, right? I mean, I would say Korea was one of the first countries to offer 5G to the consumers, but China had advanced tremendously in 5G, right? And also multiple reports indicate that China is now compelling the 5G momentum. So I think to answer your question, in the region, they are slightly behind China Mobile or China per se in terms of 5G as well. I say for China Mobile because so far, if you compare the three operators in China, China Mobile has seemed to be the forefront and the most advanced in putting out not only the network of 5G, but also being able to have 100 business scenarios applications across 15 vertical countries, right? And so this is going to be the next generation wireless technology rolling out across the world. But I don't think we've seen that in this region yet. So, but I believe it was all happen very soon because you need the network first. That's the basic. Once the network is consistent, is trusted, then you can enable the applications.
I see, I see. So what are some of the key projects that China Mobile International has in this part of the world in pushing forward the 5G implementation?
Frankly, there isn't any yet, right? But we do play our part in trying to help to push on this 5G momentum, right? So, for example, one of the major, like you mentioned, when you use 5G, the battery runs out. So it happens for the base station, which is the network towers, right? Similarly, it's going to consume a lot of electricity, right? And the backup electricity becomes extremely important to enable a continued service. So the traditional methods of backup power, which is diesel and of course certain level of lithium batteries, is not sufficient to serve this purpose. So China Mobile, we work with some of our trusted partners in China. We came up with something what we call a power cabinet, which effectively brings down our OPEX and CAPEX in terms of providing the backup power to the base station, right? So we are also working with one of the local operators on this solution, right? So we are at this point in time, we are pushing some of the infrastructural products to enable the faster, more successful deployment of the 5G in this region, right? And then we are also we came out with a white paper last year with a number of different solutions, but to date, I think it's still a bit too early to try to push solutions. But we're also working with certain partners here to push some of the more successful 5G that we see in China, like Smart Harbor, right? Privatized network for enterprises, and so on and so forth.
I see. I see. I think you just mentioned the smart hub,
Smart harbor, smart ports. So you think of it
smart
like
hub.
smart port.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So a smart harbor basically, if you ever been to a port, you will see that there is someone seated somewhere very, very high up, and he's moving containers off the ship onto a storage place, right? So we have a showcase harbor in Shanghai, whereby you will see there is no physical person seated right on top. Everything is done automatically and controlled by a smart so-called loading and unloading of the containers. Right, this is only enabled because of 5G efficiency of the network, right? And they are able to also have driverless trucks in a sense, who picks up containers and move them to certain location, warehouse, and usage as well. So all this is so enabled by 5G. And to make sure that everything works well, we also have drones patrolling around the area, which helps to give very specific locations instructions so that everything can be automated. It's not saying that there's no human. Of course, there's always human. The humans are just that they have a much more comfortable life by just seated in a control room and watching, making sure that everything is supposed to move as it is. Right. So this is an example of what a 5G enabled smart harbor can do.
I see. I see. So that's currently being showcased in China, and we're trying to build it here in the Gulf as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so far, of course, to to enable such this requires certain infrastructure. But I mean, China is not only just about smart harbor, right? China has one of the most connected 5G Internet of Things, right? So in China, there is a big economy called sharing economy, which basically means you use a bicycle, someone shares your bicycle. You use an umbrella, someone use your umbrella, right? Instead of you carrying an umbrella from your home, right? So all this identification, tracking, security, making sure that someone doesn't steal the umbrella or damage the umbrella or is passed on to the rightful next user, all this is part of the sharing economy, right? In a 4G network, this is already existent and enabled, but it's not efficient. In a 5G network, this becomes even more efficient, right? And one of the beautiful things about 5G is that you can privatize. So for large public services or companies or like airport, you're able to have your own enterprises and organizations can have their own private 5G networks, okay? Which enables, that means that it's for a sense of security so that there's no congestion of traffic whatsoever in sharing with the people who are not part of your organization. And this privatization also enables you to connect a lot of your so-called equipments to enable automation. Yet at the same time, in today's industries and companies, they need to build their own network to do that, right? To enable, they have to set up a lot of routers, a lot of equipments to enable to do that, and there's a cost of maintenance. But if 5G is built, they are able to just so-called partition it and use it purely for their own enterprises, and yet they don't need to maintain the network cost because the network cost is maintained by the operators, right? So this is just an example of how it is being used. I give another quotation, another example. A lot of 5G automation will come into manufacturing industries, which is traditionally not very advanced in technology, but they also realize that they need to spring to the front of technology. And manufacturing industries realize that 5G is the catalyst and the enabler for them to do that. So Bosch, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows Bosch is a very well-known manufacturer of appliances in electronics. They have one of the first to adopt so-called experimental privatized 5G network to enable better and smarter automation. And with this blueprint, they want to go and offer themselves as a technological 5G front for other manufacturing industries. So they're moving from just manufacturing appliances to showing themselves how they can use 5G and privatize 5G network to enable efficiencies. Right? So a lot of permutation that comes along with 5G.
I'm very glad that you brought up the topic of like implementing 5G in the manufacturing industry, because some people believe that 5G and its related applications in those industries will actually lead to deprivation of jobs, so decreasing employment of workers, and actually giving rise to unemployment in the possible future. What do you think of that?
I mean, with 5G, it will of course enable faster deployment of Internet of Things, IoT, and smart applications, right? Which helps automate how operations are done today, especially on, like Sid mentioned earlier, traditional industries like manufacturing. In fact, we believe that traditional industries will be the biggest beneficiary from a 5G initiated transformation to suddenly put them at the front of technology. I mean, end of the day, it's about enabling huge amounts of efficiencies and cost effectiveness through smart automation, right? And with smart automation, indeed, there will be an impact on the jobs of people, but it's not necessarily negative. Smart basically means we use technology to replace 4 of our senses: what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we smell. So today, whether you're a factory worker or you're doing certain operational job, you are actually using your sight, your hearing, your touch, and your smell to make judgments to achieve a certain work objective. Smart means is able to so-called replicate our seeing, hearing, touching, and smelling. So they make the same judgments that we otherwise require a human to do. Thankfully, it doesn't, so far it's not able to replicate what we eat, so we still can enjoy our activities like eating, right? But it cannot take over our thoughts and creative thinking process, which is what makes human the most advanced animal in the world for more than 2,000 years, right? I mean, humans have already adapted to new environmental change time and again. And we will, of course, again adapt as well by taking on new job roles, which requires more creativity rather than repetitive manual labor. I mean, our forefathers been through industrial revolution. And in a way, if you look back, they breezed past it from factory labor job towards job natures that requires more thinking, right? I mean, if you talk about in the early 19th, there was no such job roles as finance, banking, investment, or even programming, right? But these jobs were created as we move past industrial revolution. So again, there will be, of course, these people will adapt. Of course, there will be some minority who cannot adapt and they might fall behind, but it's always been the law of nature that we evolve and grow, and 5G revolution, frankly, is no different. So I believe people will adapt and change on the job roles and use more of our creativity rather than manual labor.
I see. This is like, I'm personally really curious about the next question. And I heard once I actually when I was on 5G, my parents start asking me, so how is 6G going to look like? So yeah, so do you think do you have any idea how 6G is going to look like? How is that going to improve upon the 5G that we're having today?
6G is, frankly speaking, still very conceptual, right? It will happen, but it's still very conceptual, and people have not really seen what 5G can do. Majorly, 5G, like I say, is not so much for consumers, actually. It's more for industries, more for work applications to become the medium of things to link up. But before we can talk about 5G, we have to be able to make 5G efficient, right? I mean, 4G came about and threw out a lot of new things that would not have happened because if not for 4G. For example, Uber, Facebook, all these will come out from the 4G generations. And frankly speaking, today we're not very clear about what will come out of 5G. But we are making sure that this process, as operators all over the world, making sure that this process should be faster. That's why China Mobile and other industry players were working together on an initiative based on the open radio access network, Open RAN, right? In simple terms, if operators adopt this, we believe it will bring down the cost of 5G costs, enable a more open source of development of 5G applications, so as to speed up more related applications, right? So I think what 6G will do is that whatever deficiencies of 5G, it will further enhance, right? So obviously one of the I would say, flaws of 5G is that it uses up electricity battery really fast, right? So I'm not sure whether 6G can do that, but I mean, I expect that 6G is supposed to be an enabler to cover some of the flaws. I mean, 5G will not be perfect, but it is very powerful and it will drive a kind of change that, I mean, when we switch from 3G to 4G, nobody can think about Uber or Facebook or things like that, right? And it happens after 4G came into play. So I'm personally very excited about what doors will be opened as 5G comes about.
I see. I personally really look forward to like improving on the battery, on the energy consumption issue, because I hope I can take my laptop one day, sit in the park and go through the whole day of Zoom classes without having to charge
the batteries will also develop and advance in accordance to the market needs, right? This is always
for sure.
Right.
Okay, let's shift gear a little bit. We understand that China Mobile International has had a presence in the UAE since 2015, and the Dubai office was established in 2018. Correct me if we got this wrong. So it's still quite new to this region. So were there some major challenges that you and your team have encountered when you were setting up this overseas branch?
Okay, so first and foremost, China Mobile was registered in 2015. But just because you register a company doesn't mean you have the right person to run the business, right?
Right.
So we came in basically late 2017, but we had our opening ceremony in 2018, right? Because I know usually opening ceremony is when you start the business, but the bosses, they like to see some business before doing a big show. And we were very lucky at that time. The chairman, not the chairman, sorry, the CEO and the president of China Mobile Group came down to UAE, and so that really made a big impact for us for the opening ceremony, right? About the challenges of setting up office here, I mean, there are obviously cultural differences between how a Chinese state-owned government entity works with companies who have been operating in this region for quite some time. I mean, as the saying goes, culture is strategy for breakfast. And we needed to adapt our style, our strategy very quickly to be in line with the operational customs in this region. To bridge this gap in culture and working style was one of my key challenges, right? And what I did was that it helped that I've been here before, for more than 10 years. So I make sure that I have a very international team working with me. We have 8 different nationalities in a very small team of 16 people here, and we work very well together with a mutual respect and understanding. I mean, nothing beats culture than having the people itself here.
I see. So before I move on to my next question, I actually have a question from the Q&A box. So I'll read out the question. So does the diplomatic relationship between China and the host country challenge or facilitate CMCC's international expansion in any way? Is it different working for CMCC International in Gulf than in other regions? So to summarize, I guess we can circle back to the big backdrop of China Gulf relations. So recently, after Xi's visit, there has been the Belt and Road Initiative. A lot of Chinese companies have trying to expand into this part of the world. So with that backdrop, do you think this improving relationship between China and the UAE or the Gulf region have facilitated this international expansion from CMC?
I mean, China government or China had always had a very good relationship with the Gulf, right? Not only just with UAE, but in Saudi, Kuwait, in Qatar, there's always been very strong relations. I think the Chinese government makes sure that is one of the key objectives to maintain a very good relationship, right? But I would say UAE and China, in terms of the closeness, I've seen it being more publicized and more evident, right? Not to say that it's not as good as the others, I'm sure they're all good, but I just being here, I see more of the closeness of the governments, right? And I think that facilitated the cooperation of the business, right? If at the political top level, if they are not cooperating that well, I'm not saying, of course, companies will still come. Companies will always go where there's money to be made. But having these close relationships within government further foster and make it even bigger and better and easier for the companies to come here.
I see. Actually, so circle back to a point that you brought up previously. So we understand you have had a very global career. You worked for Syntel and Ooredoo Group before coming to the UAE and start a branch for China Mobile International here. So for those of our audience who are not familiar with these names, Syntel is a telecom conglomerate in Singapore, and Ooredoo is an international telecom company headquartered in Qatar. So my question for you is, really, what brought you to the Middle East, personally?
I mean, I born and grew up in Singapore and worked only in Singapore until I was age of 32, if I remember correctly, yeah, 32. But I always thought the world is so big, and it's a pity if we do not get to see more of this beautiful world, right? And of course, we've traveled before the COVID, so convenient, we can travel around. But I find that in a short leisure travel trip, you don't really know and understand how a different part of the world is, right? So back in 2008, the Gulf region was slowly but surely gaining a reputation for going to be a very fast developing part of the world. So when the right opportunity came, I jumped on the ship, started a new adventure of my life to get to know more about this different part of the world.
Actually, many of our audience today are students or young professionals who are thinking of having a similar global career. And you have worked in many different countries. And what sort of advice would you give to our young professionals today who are thinking of a global career?
A short, simple answer would be to go for it, right? I mean, the world is increasingly global, while digitalization allows you to live your life without moving from where you sit and still work globally. But this is different from being there physically to experience all the good and bad, high and lows, right? And sometimes to quote Forrest Gump, you never know what's in the box of chocolates. When I came to the Middle East, I was single, right? I'm now a happily married man with 2 beautiful daughters. And all these places fell into place naturally. It's not like I came up with a plan, I'll come here and then I'll get married and so forth, right? So things only happened after I left the comfort of my home to go overseas, right? And I personally believe life is about experiences, and memories are what we have at the end of the day when we rest and retire. While you're able and can, go out there and experience something new. Globalization, along with digitalization, is happening very quickly, whether you like it or not. We have to be more global. It's not even a choice if you want to be out there, especially you're young and new, starting your career, competing against others who have a far more global experience. I mean, you sit in your office or home today, right? Working for a global company, and you being physically there to interact, experience the culture, and talk to people, have interaction is I mean, you can't compete against these people, right? And more importantly, it gives you a lot more stories to tell your grandchildren when you're home. If you're not out there, you don't have stories, limitedly, much lesser stories, right?
Definitely. So I have 2 more questions coming from the audience. So the first question, I guess, is a slightly shorter one. So we'll get to that one first. So I'll read it out for you. Hi, Mr. Lee. I'm wondering how China Mobile International is collaborating with other Chinese companies such as Huawei and Chinese companies in the Middle Eastern region. So I guess could you provide, if you can, some examples of Chinese companies that you have worked with in this part of the world?
I mean, we ourselves, along with other companies like Huawei and many other technology companies, and also we are all part of an ecosystem, right? The ecosystem is what makes an industry successful and vibrant. there is no one person who can one entity who can go solo and provide anything. I mean, Huawei is obviously a very, very successful, well-respected company. They are the top-notch telecommunication equipment manufacturers, of course, and today they move into handsets and so on and so forth, right? But this is still one of the greatest strengths. And China Mobile can never say, go and set up a factory today and say we want to manufacture at equal level of 5G equipment, which Huawei is very great at doing it, for example. And we also work with other not so commonly known companies, but there are a lot of Chinese state-owned companies who are also here. And we all come together to put in ecological system, right? I mean, one of the things of 5G, for example, which is a good way to showcase this. While we operators know how to build the network, we cannot come up with a solution. We can't just make a 5G solution and say, okay, you are a harbor, take it. You are a city, take it. Right? We have to work with the big companies, enterprise companies who know their business well. The people who operate some ports, they know their business well. The people who operate their parking, they know their business well. The people who operate their factories, they know their business well. And what we are saying is that with this advanced 5G network, what else can we do to help you? And we come together and then we come up with a solution that then can be transferred and minorly modified to similar countries in industry. So it's all part of one ecosystem.
I see.
Yeah.
And the next question I have from the audience is, this is taking a more a kind of a different angle at 5G. So what kinds of political or international issues might 5G bring?
I don't think 5G will bring about issues. I think 5G will enable more closer collaboration, right? For the longest time, I bring you in reference to the start of this interview. You mentioned that a lot of operators, telecom operators, are monopolies or monopolistic, duopoly in a sense, right? But operators have also realized, because of this enclosed control, we have not been able to move as fast as we want, right? Because if you look at successful software companies, right? Alibaba, TikTok, and all these top software companies, why are they able to advance so fast? Because they can just get a whole bunch of people, work very hard, and they come up with a new upgrade in a matter of days or weeks, right? But for operator, it's a lot more difficult because everything is enclosed. So what we are trying to do with 5G is to open up so that people who are not in the telecommunications companies, people who are just programmers, can also access this platform to create with their new innovative solutions, like an open source, in programming terms, like open source coding. Someone write a program, somebody else can take the open source and further develop into it. So 5G is what we operators are trying to do. That's why we have this Open RAN initiative, right? So bring back to the question, such cooperation, such sharing of experience, such sharing of technology and expertise, I think actually brings about more closer fostering of countries rather than creating issues.
I see. I hope that answers, I'm sure actually that answers the question. So I have one more from here. So the question is the rate of implementing 5G infrastructure and adopting 5G IoT based technologies based on current technology infrastructure? That is the development of 5G based on the development of 4G? Or can we expect developing countries to leapfrog over the more developed ones? So in other words, does the success in implementing 4G today translate to success tomorrow within the context of 5G?
Yeah, I get the question. Frankly speaking, countries or operators who have not, especially who are still in 3G, like in Lebanon, like in certain parts of Africa, from my limited knowledge, right? they will be able to jump straight into 5G, right? But what operators who already have an advanced 4G network, they can save so-called capex costs of enabling their 4G to be 5G, because it costs a lot more to build a standalone 5G tower. But if you have an existing 4G tower, you can modify it to be 5G, so that saves you some cost. So there is nothing to stop operators from leapfrogging and jumping to go to 5G. But of course, the cost of investments will be a lot higher. I'm sure the operators here in the region do the same, but I don't have the stats for the local operators, but I would say in China, 40% of our 5G network are built on existing 4G towers. So that saves us a lot of cost of enabling 5G. That's why we are able to implement 390,000 base stations in a matter of 1 year, right? So if the less developed countries want to jump to the 5G, as long as they have sufficient investments, sufficient funding, they can do so.
I see. So we have time for one more question. And I actually have more than one question here. So the first one is, hi, Mr. Lee, thank you for the talk. Apparently, there are several hotspots in the world who are leading in the 5G competition. What about the developing world, such as South America and Africa? What is the prospect of 5G in these regions?
They will definitely go towards 5G, but at this point in time now, it's very, very hard to say what is the timeline. I'm not so that familiar with South America, but what I can say is for Africa, because it's closer to where we are, there has been at least 3 to 4 new submarine cables investments from the Middle East to Africa. Submarine cables are basically connectivity infrastructure to enable better access of internet, right? All these submarine cables investment cost millions, and people or we are not investing these millions of dollars into connectivity infrastructure, digital highway into Africa for no reason, right? So this is in anticipation that in 4 to 5 years or maybe more, depending on which part of Africa, 5G is going to pick up. And when 5G pick up is we will utilize connectivity like you use a 5G subscriber. You look at your data bandwidth that you use. The access bandwidth is so much more, right? And the infrastructure has to be improved to that, right? So I see that the development will come, not so soon, maybe in about 4 to 5 years. In 2025-26, we will see more clearer signs of how 5G is picking up in the less developed parts of the world.
I see. I guess we do have time for the final question. This is a rather long question, so I'll read the whole thing. So it sounds like the 5G ecosystem requires a strong partnership between public infrastructure and private solutions. We can expect infrastructure to stay in national interests, while private solutions are likely to be global player with profit maximizing ambitions. So do we expect the synergies of 5G to be limited by protectionism policies implemented by governments to protect local players?
I think this is a very broad-based question. Every country has different priorities and different perception, right? I'm sure everybody knows that the 5G will enable things to happen, but not every country feels that they should. They have the different decision-making factor to decide how fast they should go, right? Because sometimes they need to prioritize other things, like for example, healthcare during COVID, right? Rather than putting the funding into technology. So, but I think ultimately, governments sees the importance of 5G, having 5G in place to be able to advance the economy. Just like back in the 1990s, when countries realized that the more mobile penetration they have, the faster the economy grows, right? I believe governments all over recognize and understands that with more 5G, there is a more advance in development and the economy can grow faster. So I believe ultimately all countries want to enable 5G and to enable anything to, especially something like technology to advance, you can't be protectionist. It's going to be very difficult. You have to choose to be open and allow development, right? That's what open source coding for 5G, so-called Open RAN, is about, to enable players who are not in the industries to come in and play a part of this. So the whole concept is to speed up the whole development and applications, right? So if you're going back to protectionist, then I don't think your advancements of 5G can happen at the same pace. And if you don't advance at the same pace, then maybe you lose out to other countries who are advancing, right? But of course, I mentioned every country, they have different priorities depending on their situation. For certain situation, certain countries, maybe digital highway is not so important now. Maybe the transportation system is more important, right? So the digital highway, which is basically 5G, takes a step back, right? But I'm sure ultimately every country believe that this is the new movement that they have to move towards.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. It is truly a pleasure to have this conversation with you. With that, I would like to conclude our first interview with Mr. Alex Lee.